The Force is with you, young Skywalker.
But you are not a Jedi yet.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Kyber Chronicles, and a happy Star Wars Day. Today I have a special video planned, as well as this being the first video on the channel under its new name. So today is a big day for me. Today marks the 25th anniversary release of Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace, and it's re-released today across the world. I don't think I can talk about the film and truly celebrate it without delving into my own personal journey with the film and the franchise, and how Star Wars has become interconnected in my life over the course of those 25 years. So sit back and enjoy as we follow my journey to a galaxy far, far away.
You refer to the prophecy of the one who will bring balance to the Force. You believe it's this boy? You can see things before they happen.
He can help you.
Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace was released in the US on May the 19th, 1999, but didn't reach cinemas in the UK until July 16th, which is where I'm from. In that time, a lot had changed in my life. I had just turned 8 on the 16th of May, and 2 weeks later, me and my family had moved from the city to a rural area a few hours away from my home. This may not seem far, but when you're a kid and leave behind family and friends to start a new life, it seems like you've moved to the other end of the galaxy. Also, what was difficult at the time was being a kid from the city moving to the countryside, where life is much slower and people are more laid back, much less in a hurry and a little cautious of new people. This was a pretty big adjustment for me at the time. At this time in my life, I was already a fan of the original trilogy, and since the internet wasn't really a major thing back then, news travelled slowly and everything relied on the news or TV ads to announce a new film. And having just moved away to the middle of nowhere, the news hadn't quite reached me that a new Star Wars film was coming out. This lasted all the way until release in the UK on July 16th. On this day, my mum surprised me with a trip to the cinema. This was also my first ever trip to the cinema, so it was a new experience for me and I was very excited. My mum didn't tell me what we were going to see, and then we were stood outside the cinema with a huge queue of people. And then I saw the poster on the wall outside the cinema read, "Now showing Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace." And suddenly it hit me, there's a new Star Wars movie out, and we are here to see it. This is a moment I can't fully describe unless you were there. The excitement, joy and anticipation I felt was unimaginable, and I wasn't the only one. Adults and kids alike were buzzing with the same feeling. Looking back now, I realize something that makes me understand why Star Wars is so special and means so much to so many people. Star Wars brings people together. Total strangers for one brief moment will come together to celebrate Star Wars. Families will also connect and bond over it. There aren't many things that have such a profound and powerful effect on people. As 8-year-old me entered the cinema and watched my first Star Wars movie on the big screen, and I heard the trumpeting of that fantastic orchestral opening theme by John Williams, seeing returning characters like Yoda and young Obi-Wan Kenobi and young Anakin before he becomes Darth Vader, new characters such as Darth Maul and his incredible dueling with a cool as hell double-bladed lightsaber. The whole thing felt like magic was unfolding before my eyes. It was an experience I'll cherish forever, but little did I know just how important this experience would go on to be in my life. After all that, all I wanted to do that summer was play Star Wars, watch Star Wars. I even built my own double-bladed lightsaber with tape and some poles from a Kids Assemble football goalposts. And despite struggling to make friends in a new place, I was able to immerse myself in Star Wars. What I remember from this time is I wasn't the only kid who felt this way. It had a profound effect on the generation at the time. Despite what we might think of the movie now, at the time it received mostly positive feedback, especially with the children who grew up with it, and it became a phenomenon. I can't say whether it compares to the boom it received in the 70s and 80s, but at the time it seemed unstoppable. Later that same year for Christmas, I received my first ever Darth Maul bike, which was so cool, but unfortunately it came with stabilizers, which I begged my mum to take them off so I could learn to ride properly, which eventually she did, and I did eventually learn to ride that bike, despite falling off and scraping my knees and elbows bloody countless times. I also, this Christmas, received my first ever console, the PlayStation 1, and alongside it came the Phantom Menace game, which I was extremely happy with. I have recently replayed this game, and for those of you seeing it on screen now, it's nothing special. With its low poly graphics, hilariously bad dialogue, and interesting mechanic of being able to kill anyone in the game, and I mean anyone, whether it's Queen Amidala or droids. If it moves, it can be sent to the Cosmic Force, which doesn't seem very Jedi-like to me. These things didn't matter to me because I was just happy. I could explore the worlds of the movie I loved so much and take part in the iconic events that happened in the movie. I also fondly remember the music video it had on the game, which showed key parts of the movie mixed with behind the scenes footage, shots of the score being orchestrated, a few lines added from Darth Maul that don't appear in the movie. I remember rewatching that constantly as a kid while I waited for the VHS to come out, because videotapes took a few months after release to come out. Unlike today, where movies are either out in cinemas and streaming a month or two later and it's out on physical, back then it was a waiting game. Fortunately for me, I still have my original Phantom Menace VHS, which I don't watch anymore, but I've kept for sentimental reasons. I have a particular funny memory from this time that I always remember whenever I play the game. In the new year of 99 to 2000, I moved again, this time not so far from where we were, but schools were better where we were moving, so I also moved schools again. And this time I actually made some new friends, ironically through our mutual love of Star Wars. At this time I had been replaying Star Wars The Phantom Menace for the PlayStation, as I had still not been able to beat the game fully, mostly due to the frustrating gameplay and me being bad at video games, which I still am to be fair. During this playthrough over the weekend I had made it further than ever before. Truth be told, I was having too much fun hacking down Gungans in their underwater city, and on Monday morning I was determined to get home and make it even further. Again, hunting Gungans for sport. However, on this day, someone wanted to prevent harm coming to those Gungans, and fate or the Force had intervened. On this day, I had to leave school early to go to hydrotherapy for a medical condition I have. On my way to hydrotherapy, I pulled up in the car to the sports centre where I was having this session because they have a pool equipped for it. And as I leave the car and close the door, I slammed the door shut on my right index finger, which I still have the scar from to this day. All I can tell you is kids are not so sweet and polite when they jam their fingers in a car door. What happened next, I still to this day do not understand why I did what I did. But I think when you injure yourself as a kid, thought doesn't really go into anything, you just overreact, especially when your finger is now twice its size and looking like a tree twig. As I jammed my finger, I yanked it free, not even stopping to open the door, and I ran, while in tears, into the entrance of the sports centre. I ran so hard and was crying so much I didn't pay attention to my surroundings, and I ran flat out into the front desk and knocked myself to the floor. What was funny to me is the receptionist is white as a sheet, and I'm crying so hard I sound like a Wookiee on helium, while trying to explain to my mum what's wrong because all she saw was her kid scream and just run away. After this, my mum takes me to the hospital, and after an x-ray the doctor tells me I've broken my finger, and he tells me they are going to tape my index finger and my middle finger together so the broken finger can heal straight again. As the doctor bandages and tapes my fingers together, he asks me if I play PlayStation, and I said yes, I do. He then tells me and my mum, don't play on it for a few weeks, as I won't be able to use the shoulder buttons, and if I do, my finger won't heal straight. As the doctor is finished telling me this, my mum is looking at me as if to say, you dare touch that console. Well, skip a week later, and I've been playing the game constantly in secret and nearly completed it, until my mum caught me. By which point she thought it was pointless to punish me because I already have a finger that is now not straight. And in my defense, I did last all of an hour before I caved. And what did I learn? That a broken finger and a little pain shouldn't deter you from your goals. All jokes aside, this memory, despite being something that should be a negative, every time I look at my crooked finger and scar, I remember secretly playing Star Wars, despite the awkwardness of two fingers being strapped together and suffering a little pain. I find once again, that's the magic of Star Wars. It was there when I moved away, got me through some loneliness, helped me make friends, got me through a broken finger. Star Wars for me is about connection, and as you're about to find out, Star Wars also had another part to play in my life. If you allow me to jump 18 years later, after 1999, and delve into something a little more personal and special to me. In 2018, I'm now 28 at this point, just a week after my birthday, on May the 25th, I had just come out of the cinema with some friends, as we had just watched Solo: A Star Wars Story. At this moment in time, however, I was going through a bit of a rough spot in my life. My health was deteriorating, so I was attending specialist appointments at the time, and my mental health was also a bit fragile. I was struggling, but I had Star Wars to enjoy near my birthday. But due to my health, I hadn't been dating for a while, instead focusing on healing and working on myself. However, on this day, I leave the cinema. I check my phone. I received a message from a girl called Ali. As Ali and I get talking, we discover a mutual love of movies. Eventually I meet Ali and her two beautiful little girls, Taylor, who is 4 at the time, and Harper, who was just 10 months old. And little did I know these three beautiful girls were about to change my life. It may just be a coincidence, but it feels funny to me that the day I go to see something I love, three someone specials has just walked into my life on the very same day. Over the course of a few months, Ali tells me she's never watched Star Wars.
This is impossible!
But I'd always been curious, so I suggested if she'd like to watch them with me, and she said yes. So we watched them in chronological order, starting with the Phantom Menace. While we watched the movies, the kids were playing in the room, and the eldest stops and sits down to look at what's on the screen and does not move through the entire movie. And if you've got kids, you know 4-year-olds don't stop for very long while they're playing. Their attention spans are usually not very long. We eventually watched them all, and Taylor especially is transfixed by these movies. At the time, she loved Darth Vader from the original trilogy and would imitate him all the time, just as I did when I was a kid. Later that Christmas, Taylor put on her list to Santa she wants a lightsaber, so I put in a good word for her, and Christmas Day, Taylor had received her first ever lightsaber, and several Star Wars books she wanted from Santa. That was 6 years ago, and over the course of those 6 years, I read Star Wars stories at bedtime for them. I've seen them enjoy Star Wars the same way I did, which I never thought possible because I never really planned on having kids in my life. Now they too have a connection to Star Wars that we've been able to bond over. They've chosen me to be their stepdad, and it's an honor for them to love me and treat me like a father. Now today on Star Wars Day, on May the 4th, 25 years later, I'll be taking my own family to see The Phantom Menace for the first time on the big screen. Its legacy is being passed on, with Taylor and Harper, who are now 10 and 6, and are very excited to see the movie. That's the true magic of Star Wars. It's generational. It brings people together. And if it weren't for that 8-year-old kid who sat in the cinema and watched Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, I don't think my life would be the same. May the Force be with you, always.